Written and directed by Ronald Maxwell and starring Martin Sheen, Jeff Daniels, Tom Berenger, Stephen Lang, and Sam Elliott, the movie painstakingly follows the events leading up to and including the Battle of Gettysburg.
Oh my god, dude, it's so long. Why does it have to be so long?
So something I have to call out right away is the obvious love and affection that the director Ronald Maxwell has for the source material. It is spelled out in every scene how much this guy really loves this period in American history, the Civil War era, the amount of detail, the amount of factual detail put into the movie. It is incredibly well researched. It's dense. I mean, there's so much going on here. The second thing I want to point out is that this film is very unusual in its approach to telling a story like this. Now, usually in a war film, we follow one side of the war or one side of the conflict, and that's it. And the other side of the conflict is the enemy. They're the bad guys in the movie, and we don't really worry about what they think or what their opinion of the war is because we don't care. They're just the bad guys. That is not the case in this movie. In Gettysburg, the director goes to painstaking lengths to describe what the opinions of the Northern Federal Army is versus the rebel Southern Army is. And both viewpoints are really expanded upon and discussed. And it's an interesting idea to play with the idea that both sides of this conflict don't want war, really. They don't want to be killing each other because the things that bring them together, their shared history, their shared culture, the fact that a lot of the people in the war are physically related, brothers fighting brothers, literal brothers. There's a lot of interesting ground to cover there, and I admire the attempt, but it's not very cinematic, I'll say that much. We're just getting so many scenes of people, pontificating about their beliefs and what they think and the philosophy of war, and on and on and on and on. I think every major character in this film has a long monologue, at least one each.
So he will set up a ring around these hills. And when Lee's army's all nicely entrenched behind fat rocks on the high ground, Meade will finally attack if he can coordinate the army. Straight up the hillside, out in the open, in that gorgeous field of fire. And we will charge valiantly and be butchered valiantly. Afterwards, men in tall hats and gold watch fobs will thump their chests and say what a brave charge it was.
It's like, come on. We don't need this much breadth and depth of detail. I think the performances were really good from some people. I mean, Jeff Daniels killed it in this movie. I mean, Jeff Daniels was amazing in this film. Every scene he was in was really great. Same thing with Sam Elliott. Dude, Sam Elliott was my favorite part of this movie, honestly, because he's only in the first third of the movie, which is still like an hour and a half, but his part of the movie is really good. I really buy him as this kind of battle-hardened cavalry officer, who's trying to do his best for his men by doing something really reckless and dangerous. It's interesting. He just kills it with his performance. Martin Sheen does a really great job as General Lee. At first, it didn't quite feel right, but then as the movie went on, I totally bought Martin Sheen as General Lee. It really worked for me by the end of the movie. Tom Berenger did a really great job as well as a Confederate general. And overall, the performances were just really solid from all of the mainline cast. The people who had to deliver lines, it was all really good. Unfortunately, the same thing cannot be said for the extras. Now, this is a very large movie. We're talking about a large military engagement with tens of thousands of people. And I'm pretty sure that they called up the, the wartime reenactors, the Civil War reenactors of Gettysburg to come in and be in the movie because, there's so many bad extras in this movie. Like, it doesn't look like they were shot or anything. They're just sort of running and then they stop and then slowly lie down. It's like, okay, that's clearly Civil War reenactor stuff going on here. There's just a lot of really awkward stuff in the background. Oh, one of my favorites is constantly actors are freaked out, like extras are freaked out by cannons firing. Like a cannon will fire or like a squib will blow up in the foreground and you'll see the extras like jumping and reacting surprised. It feels like they did 2 takes of everything in the movie. And so there's just so many times that weird things are happening in frame that are kind of distracting and sort of takes away a lot of the authenticity of what we're watching. I'm just gonna say it, the camera work and the lighting is pretty middling. I mean, there's nothing really fancy in the camera work at all. And sometimes it's outright bad. Like this film is from the early 90s, I get it. But you get these really shaky crane shots or these shots that are just so obscured by smoke you can't see anything. Just so much of the camera work feels very basic and uninspired, and that they were focusing more on just getting coverage of things as opposed to actually trying to get really good shots. Okay, I can't jump around it anymore. We have to talk about my main criticism of the movie. I've mentioned it a couple times so far, and that is the length of the movie. This movie is 4 hours and 37 minutes long. That is insane. That is easily the longest movie I've ever watched, period. It's unbelievably long. And it feels long. That's the real problem of it. The reason the movie is so long is because no compromises were made. This isn't a story. This doesn't even really feel like a movie. Because a story follows a specific character and they go through an arc and they have a reason for going through that particular story, and there's a whole host of events that happen to impact that character. No, none of that happens in this movie. This is literally us like following the events on like graph paper. Like we're following the events as they happened. No more and no less. There's little title scrolls at the bottom of the screen that says what day it was and like what time things are at. And then while we're getting all this information, this dry information about what happened and when it happened, we're also spending all of this runtime on the philosophy of war and governance of people and freedom and what it means to be a man and brotherhood. And like, there's just so much conversation in this movie about different philosophies and different themes, and nothing is cut. Nothing is cut. It's all explored. I admire the director's love of this time period and all the things it means for the country at the time and for the people of the time. I really do appreciate it, but my God, does it make for boring cinema. And to be clear, I have spent the last few years watching a ton of classic black and white films from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. And so my tolerance for very slow pacing is very high. I have a very high tolerance for that. This film just felt like it took forever because the lack of a clearly defined main character in this movie, along with these long stretches of philosophical debate, along with these very dry presentations of these battles, just really made this hard to watch. It's now time for my final rating. I'm going to give Gettysburg 4 out of 10. I think if you are a person who's taking like a college level course on Gettysburg or the Civil War or something, and you want to get like a visual explanation of what happened at the battle, this movie is great for that. For everybody else, this is just a bloated, confused, not that exciting movie. Are there scenes that are cool? Yeah, there's a couple battle scenes that are cool. I recommend YouTubing them. You can save yourself 4 hours by just watching a couple of the battle scenes on YouTube. This movie is so long, I would have enough time to watch a documentary about the Civil War, take a nap, and then watch a documentary about Gettysburg itself, and I'd still be done before the movie was finished. Thank you guys so much for watching my review of Gettysburg. If you enjoy the content, please do all that standard YouTube stuff, like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me out. And until next time, have a good one.